So a couple weeks back, I was scrolling through Reverb and came across an 18-inch drum shell. After reading the description, I saw that the shell is a cutoff from a tom project and the depth was around 7 inches. The guy was asking $45, but I was able to offer $35 and he accepted. I've owned a number of kits through the year with shallow depth drums, including the Tama Club Jam Mini, the Yamaha Stage Custom Hip, and even a few drum shells that I've cut down myself over the years. So while I waited for the shell to arrive, I went through my own inventory of drum parts and found 6 dual-sided snare lugs, 12 bass drum claws, 2 18-inch hoops, and some 18-inch drum heads. I also hit up one of my favorite online retailers, Sweetwater, to order the bass drum spurs and the 2 mounting brackets. With that, I had everything I needed, minus the tension rods, but I figured I'd have to wait on those until I could assemble the drum and figure out what size rods I needed. So after about 10 days, the drum finally showed up and I was ready to start putting this thing together. I went down to my local Lowe's where they had this signature Minwax navy stain that I thought would look cool on the maple wood and decided to give that a shot for this project. I decided to start with staining and polying the drum because I figured if I could get all of the finishing out of the way before any holes were drilled, I could avoid worrying about stain or poly getting through any of the holes.
What follows is a brief construction montage.
For the poly, I did a high gloss clear coat Minwax spray polyurethane, and I probably did between 8 to 10 coats throughout a 2 to 3 day process. In between most coats, I would sand a little bit, dust off, and then apply more poly. I did a similar process for the bass drum hoops with probably 4 to 5 coats of poly, sanding between a little bit each time. They looked a little ratty from adhesive from an old wrap that was on these, and when I ripped it off and sanded it, I couldn't really get it to look great, but the dark stain I think kind of covers that up. Probably my biggest mistake on this whole project was thinking I'd be able to trim the drum down to its final depth after I stained and polyed it. I realized the table saw was pretty rough and scratched up a little bit of the glossy finish I had put on with the last few coats of poly. If I could go back and do it again, I might stain the drum first, trim it down, and then poly it. I found a really informative video from one of my favorite YouTubers, David R, about laying out a 6-lug hole pattern for any drum. Basically, you take the radius of your drum, not the diameter, use a compass to create a circle, and then you draw one point on the perimeter of the circle and take your compass and make points with that same radius going across the drum. And if you do it right, you should end up with 6 evenly spaced points across the circle. I then took these reference points and drew a line up the shell of the drum, which then I traced out and marked where I needed to drill holes for my lugs. After that, I took the drum over to my dad's house where he has a router table and we cut a dual 45-degree bearing edge on each side of the shell. The final step when I got this thing back was to just assemble all of it together and see how it sounds. Overall, I'm pretty excited about how this drum turned out. I brought it to a couple gigs the first weekend I finished it, one of them being kind of a patio acoustic rock situation, and the second being a jazz trio farmer's market gig. It's not terribly loud, but it's really easy to carry around, doesn't take up much room on stage, and gets the job done. As you heard in the playing examples, it's pretty easy to tune down low and get a big fat sound, especially when it's mic'd up. So to add it all up, I spent $35 on the shell, another $50 at Sweetwater, ordering a few parts, maybe $15 on stain and polyurethane from Lowe's, and the rest of the parts I had on hand. So for just around $100, I think this drum turned out pretty great. I'd love to hear what you think about it, and let me know if you think I should consider building some toms for this kit, because I've had some ideas now that this is done to turn it into a whole kit. Thanks for checking out this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.